Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us on Are You OK Day so that we can have a conversation around how to manage remote employee wellbeing. So this afternoon we'll cover what is Are You OK Day, mental health and COVID-19, what the impact of poor wellbeing is, why businesses should support mental health at work, and we'll cover low-cost initiatives to support remote employee wellbeing, as well as talk about ways to foster a psychologically safe work environment. And if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. So we thought we'd start today just by visiting Are You OK Day and starting that conversation. Are You OK Day was created and founded by Gavin Larkin in response to his own father's suicide. The organisation highlights the importance of regular check-ins to ensure no one is suffering in silence and destigmatising conversations around mental health. It's all about asking someone that simple question, are you okay? Making sure you listen with intent, encouraging them to take some action, and then checking in with them to see how they're doing. Let's talk about the impact of poor mental health. Would you believe in a study last year that 69% of workers claimed that COVID-19 was the most stressful time of their entire professional career, including major events like the September 11 terror attacks, the 2008 Great Recession, and others. The impact is just massive. So we're all asking, when will this end? No one's doing okay at the moment. We're all overwhelmed. We're actually grieving the loss of normality. And any crisis does reveal fault lines, whether it's in work, our personal life, and also reveals often the inequities between people. COVID has revealed many fault lines. We all want normal back, but we can't go back to normal. So we need to look at ways to look after our own people's well-being and mental health during this incredibly stressful time. Workplace stress is expensive in two main ways: presenteeism, which is when people come to work, but they're unable to perform at full capacity due to mental or physical distress. And then you have absenteeism. Would you believe in Australia alone last year, $12 billion was lost based on poor mental health? And then when we look at the advantages of good wellness and well-being, a report that was done last year shows that if we take care of people's well-being, they become more productive at work to the tune of about $1,000 a year. They're generally healthier, so sick days are cut in half. Wellbeing also increases what you call organisational citizenship behaviour, which is employees helping others at work. Your employees also react more positively to workplace changes. And people in general are more positive about their workplace, so they are more likely to say good things to others and less likely to look for other work. The Centres for Disease Control and Prevention cites work-related stress as the leading workplace health problem and a significant occupational health risk, one that actually outranks physical inactivity and obesity. In addition to supporting employees' physical and mental health, wellbeing programs can help you tackle burnout, stress, turnover, and absenteeism. So what is wellbeing? It's a holistic understanding of a person's physical, emotional, mental, and social state. It's a lot more than just wellness, which typically tends to focus on someone's physical health. When people are in a good state of well-being, they're more productive and they build more positive relationships. Now, when you're trying to improve your employee well-being, focus on aspects that are largely determined and impacted by your workplace factors, because this means that as an organisation, you are able to directly address any of those areas rather than simply providing support. Let's touch on some low-cost initiatives to support remote employee wellbeing. Start off with empowering your managers with the right tools and ideas. Your managers are so important to their teams and their direct reports' well-being. Start by introducing one-on-ones. For those of you who don't know what they are, a one-on-one is a scheduled meeting in your calendar and your mental mind for open-ended and anticipated conversation between a manager and an employee. Unlike status reports or tactical meetings, a one-on-one is a place for coaching, mentorship, giving context, and even allowing an employee to vent. The one-on-one goes beyond an open door policy and dedicates time on a regular cadence for teammates and leaders to connect and to communicate. So how do you hold an effective one-on-one in this new virtual world of work? You have to begin with open-ended questions. Now be mindful, the one-on-one is time dedicated to your employee. It's not about you as a manager. So if you're asking someone how they're feeling, now we need to look for visual cues because we're no longer in the office where we had social clues about how someone is actually doing. Ask your employees what's on their mind. Do they have roadblocks that you can help them overcome? And ask them how you can help. Now, most importantly, actively listen. A really vital part of a manager's role is to make sure their employees feel safe, heard, and empowered. Also, as we do one-on-ones virtually over video, try and listen to the tone of the voice for clues from your employee that they might be struggling. So next steps, as a manager, you need to be the facilitator of solutions. You need to uncover what your employee is excited about. Are there opportunities for you to mentor them to be successful and unblock them to do their best work? These are some ways where you can create space of trust. Confirm their points first. We can all misinterpret. So did you hear and interpret them correctly? Disclose or normalize your own weaknesses, places where you've stumbled in the past. If you can talk about a time that you've made a mistake and be vulnerable, you're giving your employee the permission to do exactly the same and share things with you. Always be unconditionally on their side, even and especially when giving them constructive feedback about opportunities for growth. Always show respect. One of the easiest ways to do this is to treat them like a peer rather than a direct report during the one-on-one. Remember, honesty is always the best approach, and mix it up. In this time when we're all stuck to our desks and on videos, maybe once a month, use your one-on-one to go for a walk and hold your one-on-one on your mobile so you're both getting out. It will really mix up the conversation. What if you're not a manager? How can you best leverage your one-on-one? It's time for you to express to your manager what's on your mind. You might want to use the time to brainstorm about projects and also communicate your future goals and talk about career development. Remember to use your time wisely. So planning. Try and jot down what topics you'd like to discuss. Are you feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, blocked, or are you super excited? Have a bit of a think about why you think this way and outline any specific potential solutions you'd like to work through. Remain open to discussing what's really going on and where you need support. And you have to remember to ask for it in layman's terms. No one can read your mind. Do you want more responsibility? An opportunity to manage a junior team member? And try and be specific. Flexible working. So just because we're working remotely, it doesn't mean that our people feel empowered to work flexibly. So you as a manager have to encourage your employees to use their commute time to do something meaningful to them. Exercise, homeschooling, meditation, just getting away from their desk and their laptops. You also need to set an example as a leader. This is where you could keep your calendar open and put in these things that you're doing to make the most of remote work. Are you going for a walk at 8 a.m. in the morning when you'd normally be on the bus or on a train? Put that in your calendar so people can see it. There's also this concept called the third space, which was coined by Dr. Adam Fraser, who's a psychologist. He did a lot of research and study about transition time, and that's time to transition to and from work. So generally, we all transitioned during our commute time, and quite often that might be the only time you have to yourself during the day. So maybe go for a walk and have that mock commute. And really importantly, encourage annual leave. And again, set the example by taking annual leave yourself. Another great idea is to offer virtual yoga and meditation sessions. Let's talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment with purpose, with kindness and curiosity. Meditation and yoga can help boost mindfulness. It allows us to respond to stressful situations thoughtfully rather than being reactive. When we invest in mindfulness practices over the long run, we're able to build the resilience and mental strength needed to successfully manage the many stresses we all face in our lives. Don't have the budget for yoga or meditation? Ask your team, are there any keen yogis? Would they like to lead a weekly yoga or meditation session? We've done that. There's also a lot of free meditation and yoga apps that you can recommend to your people. And working remotely, you can do these sessions via Zoom so that everyone can join in and reap the rewards. And as a manager, give your employees permission to calendar it during the day to make sure they commit to attending these sessions. There's also this great free yoga session that our own employee assistance program recommends. We'll send it out to you. And we also have a lot of people here at work who are doing yoga in the morning or after work over Zoom with their friends. And that's a really fantastic thing as well. Let's talk about employee assistance programs. For those of you who haven't heard of this, it's an external program that employers can provide to their employees to support their mental health and well-being. What it does is it gives your employees and their immediate family members access to professional counselling and support services when they need it, and it's completely confidential. 1 in 2 managers believe their employees are immune to mental illness, yet 20% of Australians aged between 16 and 85 will experience mental illness this year. I would actually guess it would be more than that given COVID. And in the wake of COVID, Beyond Blue have estimated their call numbers to have increased by 40 to 60%. So for workplaces, if you want to ensure your employees are happy, healthy, and productive, an employee assistant program can have a huge impact, both financially and culturally. And it can cost you as little as $5 per employee per month. Pre-COVID, untreated mental health cost Australian workplaces an estimated $12 billion per year in absenteeism, preteeism, and compensation claims. So supporting mental health, it's not just the right thing to do for your people, it's the right thing for your business. Encourage your team to take regular breaks. This is so important. Overworked employees are often dealing with chronic stress that can easily lead to burnout. So this not only affects your employees' well-being, it negatively affects the bottom line too. So this is why it's so important that we encourage regular breaks throughout the workday, especially lunch. Look at today. If your employees got out and actually got some sun, got away from the screen, it will really help their wellness. It's important to help them de-stress and recharge to get through the rest of the day, especially if they have had video meetings all day and they're feeling a bit fatigued. Research has shown time and time again that regular breaks can help you refresh and re-energize. The last thing you want is your team experiencing burnout. And again, it's really hard to notice this now that we don't have the social cues that we had in the office. Psychological safety and trust is really key to giving your employees permission to take the breaks they need, especially during the workday. Don't overthink it. Just encourage your employees to use their commute time to go for a walk or have a virtual coffee with another team member or a family member. Send out messages to remind your team to go out at lunchtime. It's a beautiful day. Make sure you get some sun. Never, ever block a meeting over lunch. So say 12 till 2. You need to allow people to get out and lead by example. Actually put lunch in your calendar so your team can see that as a manager, you're going out and getting a walk for lunch or sitting on your balcony. You can also provide educational workshops on mental health to help your employees. What better way to show them that well-being is on leadership's agenda? It also takes away the stigma often associated with mental health by opening up the conversation. You could get an external facilitator. If you have an employee assistance program, they'll often have a professional who could run a workshop or webinar. You may even have someone at your work who has the educational background to run this type of workshop. There are also incredible free resources and webinars on the Are You OK Day website. And topics you can cover might be signs to look out for, how to manage your own mental health, and how to improve your overall well-being. For example, we have over 20 wellbeing online courses through our own Employment Hero LMS online system, and that's available to our employees 24/7. You need to empower a culture of transparency and vulnerability. What is vulnerability? It's that emotion we feel when we feel uncertain or when we feel we are at risk, when we're exposing our own personal emotions. An example of being vulnerable might be saying, I love you to someone for the first time. It makes you feel uncertain. You're definitely taking a risk and you're exposing yourself emotionally. We're all raised from when we're young to believe vulnerability is a weakness. We're also raised to be brave. So vulnerability doesn't come easy to any of us. So take the first step and allow yourself to be seen. Why is it important to well-being? Because by being vulnerable and showing your true self, you're building trust with your team members. Trust builds psychological safety. This will also show empathy and allow your people to be open if they're not coping well or if they're having a difficult time. So how can you display vulnerability? You might just share that you are feeling uncertain at the moment. You're feeling stressed. You're not doing well with balancing both homeschooling and working from home. You could just show that you're feeling uncertain with not knowing when lockdown will end. You will be amazed at how this opens up the conversation. Championing reward and recognition really has a great impact on wellness. The deepest craving in human nature is to feel appreciated. So how is reward and recognition correlated to well-being? At the end of the day, our employees are going to feel less motivated and engaged if they constantly receive negative feedback with no positive feedback to counteract it, not to mention this effect that it would have on their mental well-being. Research has also shown that for every piece of criticism we receive, constructive or not, we need to receive 6 pieces of positive reinforcement to counteract that piece of criticism. 52% of employees in Australia feel more productive at work when they receive praise and recognition. Another reason to invest in this. And only 14% of businesses give their managers the tools they need to recognise their teams. So how can you go about doing this if you don't have a big budget? You can do simple shout outs on your communications channel, and it makes a big difference. If you're using Slack or Teams, use that to recognise people. As a manager, use your one-on-ones and team meetings to thank people for their work, to recognise people, and to reinforce great work and behaviours. We've found that handwritten cards are a great tool, especially as we work remotely. How lovely if you open the mailbox and you get a handwritten thank you note from a leader at your organisation. Here at Employment Hero, we've also introduced at our weekly all hands verbal shout outs to other team members and people for the week. And it's a really great way for people to feel good about their week. Also, milestones such as anniversaries and birthdays are vital to use for recognition. If you do have a budget, create a reward program based on your values, where you have values champions for anyone who goes above and beyond to display that value. And a simple gift card, even if it's not of a large amount, makes a big difference to employees. Providing free resources and apps. This is great if you don't have a budget. There is so many free, fantastic apps out there. Examples are Calm, Headspace, and Smiling Mind. You could also have some well-being champions across the business. If you've got people who are really passionate about well-being and mindfulness, they can often send out links to apps as well as blogs that they might be reading that they find interesting around dealing with stress or anxiety. Let's talk about work-life balance. Due to our new remote world of work, work-life balance blend has been thrown into complete chaos, and we know how important work-life balance is to our well-being and mental health. It's easy to feel, or your employees might feel, that they have to be on 24/7 in the current situation we're in. Burnout is real though, and the consequences are terrible. As a manager, you're responsible to look out for signs of burnout. So during video meetings, look for visual signs and also changes in tone of voice. Or if you've got someone whose camera is turned off for the day, maybe check in with them if you're on a team meeting and you notice that they haven't turned their camera off. During your weekly one-on-ones, ask those really important questions and listen to the answers. How are you? Also, ask yourself, is my team working overtime every day? Are you noticing late emails, early emails? Are you noticing that they're on Slack or Teams at odd hours or weekends? Do you think your employees are feeling stressed? Do they seem less engaged and motivated? Or has there perhaps been an increase in people being away? Sorry, my technology is just catching up. And put on your own oxygen mask. We are no good as managers if we don't look after ourselves or we ourselves burn out. So ask yourself those questions and talk to your own manager or use your employee assistance program or even family or friends. There's also great free resources through organisations such as Beyond Blue. You can also open up the conversation with your GP about a mental health care plan with discounted sessions through Medicare where you can speak to a psychologist. And make sure you take annual leave and make sure your team are. It's really important. Set the example. I know we can't do much during lockdown, but if you take a day of annual leave and it's just to be there for your kids to help them with homeschooling, to take a few walks, or maybe you just need to veg out on Netflix, you'll be amazed at what it will do to re-energize you. Other ideas? You could kick off your weekly meeting by having everyone call out a celebration from the prior week. This really helps to get people in a great frame of mind. Very positive. Survey your employees. Ask them. We'll send you good questions to ask them on how they are doing, looking after their own well-being, and how your organisation is doing in helping them look after their well-being. You could remind your people and do this yourself. Have times in your calendar or an alarm on your phone that reminds you to take regular breaks, perhaps every 2 hours, even if you just walk around the house and make sure you're having enough water. Social connection. Yes, we have to physically distance. That does not mean socially distant. As humans, we all need meaningful connections. So how do we do this in the remote world? We've had teams arrange virtual social lunches in small groups where they just don't talk about work and they have lunch together. We've had happy hours. We've had teams do Scribblo, which is basically Pictionary online, creates laughs, gets people to stop thinking about work and to log off. Remind people about the importance of social connection during this time of lockdown. They need to be checking in on their own family and friends, and encourage your team members, especially today on Are You OK Day, to check on a colleague of theirs throughout the day and ask that all important question, are you doing okay? So you might be wondering, this all sounds great, but how on earth do I get buy-in and get started to have our organisation focus on wellbeing? You need to start off by developing a wellness program. So through the statistics that I've shown you, such as $12 billion lost last year due to wellness and mental health, show your leadership those numbers. You'll get buy-in if they understand the advantages of everyone being in a good place mentally. Launch that wellbeing survey that we will send you. It will give you real insights. If you don't have a survey tool, SurveyMonkey is free, so you can upload those questions and send it out. Make sure you make it anonymous, because some people don't feel comfortable responding to questions about their own wellbeing. Assess the results and present them to your team members with full transparency so they know they've been heard. So for example, if you get requests for online yoga, but you don't have the budget, just be really honest about that and ask your employees to help you come up with solutions. How could we provide free yoga sessions? Can some people recommend some apps? Then develop programs based on your employee asks, such as yoga. Maybe they want a 2-hour block during the day where no meetings are allowed to be booked. And then launch it, and then conduct another survey to see how you're tracking. So takeaways and next steps. You need to get leadership buy-in, survey your employees to know where your baseline is and how to get started, and then just get started. Implement some of these low-cost initiatives to see where it takes you and your team. So after this, we'll send you a copy of the slide deck. We also have a workplace wellness pack that our marketing team have put together, and it's absolutely incredible. We'll send you the COVID-19 employee wellness survey questions and a link to our COVID-19 resource hub. We've also got the details here for Lifeline. If you do know someone who is in crisis and needs help, that is there also. So I will now flip over to Q&A to see if we can get some discussion started. How would you go about implementing a mental health employee wellbeing program for a workforce across different regions? What are some of the key factors to consider when initially rolling this out, and how would you support employees going through difficult times? Great question. Going across different regions is a really difficult one. So you need to take all time zones into account, or for our yoga, for example, it's available on demand so that anyone in any time zone can actually access those sessions. Anytime, which is great. But if you're doing something in one region, try to replicate it in another region. For example, prior to lockdown, we were doing soccer games. So encourage someone within an office, if it's overseas, to try and get together some kind of sporting team. And again, if you really want to know what people want, ask them. So survey them. What would you like to improve the wellness of yours? Do you have any suggestions on how to improve engagement for remote blue-collared operational workforces that do not have access to the technology that office-based staff would? Great question. And I know that a lot of people are dealing with this, where you've got essential workers who might be working in a factory and they're still having to go to work. They're having to socially distance. They've got that anxiety that they're dealing with also, that they may catch COVID. They could be in an LGA of concern at the moment. So definitely printing out flyers and giving them access to something like an employee assistance program, making sure that if they don't have the technology, you're giving them that detail on a piece of paper. You could also, whilst now you have to be socially distanced, you can't really do virtual lunches, but you could do things like buy them lunch on a Wednesday for those workers, because that's a really nice thing to do. And opening up the conversations around, are you okay? Giving them access to perhaps printed versions of some of those resources on the Are You OK Day website to try and destigmatize talking about it. Can you recommend an EAP provider? Absolutely. So we use Acacia, have had the most phenomenal feedback on their psychologists and the sessions that they have. There is one other one that I get a lot of good feedback about. It's Rise Up is what it's called, and they have one online. We are also experimenting with a wellness coach for people that want to engage, and we launched that today as part of Are You OK Day and working remotely. The next question. The issue with taking annual leave is that the work is still there on the return, which creates a stressful situation on your return. Great question. So if you're going to take annual leave, you need to plan for it and make sure that you are supported in terms of people either knowing that a timeline might be pushed out on a project. Also have a talk to your manager about who you could delegate things to. Make sure you stay offline, update all of your technology status such as Slack as to where you are or Teams, and make sure you take that downtime. So it's just about planning for that annual leave and seeing where you can delegate things to. Donna, would you share your wellness program? Yes, so in the workplace wellness pack that our incredible marketing team have developed, all of that will be in there along with suggestions. And Vanessa, do you have any examples of great questions to ask in an employee survey? Yes, we created a wellness survey that we sent out probably a month and a half into lockdown 18 months ago. And all of those questions are there that will help you do it. If you don't have a survey tool, I recommend SurveyMonkey and make sure it's anonymous. From Elizabeth, any hints on how to deal with staff that just won't open up or give me anything, including eye contact? Often seems to multitask, prefers not to be on camera. So Elizabeth, for that, I would force the person during a one-on-one at the very least to be on camera with you, and I would be vulnerable. I would say, Alex, I've noticed you seem a little bit disengaged. I want to make sure you're okay, and I want you to know that this is a safe space for you to talk in, so that you're giving them that clue that yes, you've noticed something is up and you're there to listen. Now, you're not a psychologist yourself, so you may need to refer them to their GP or to an employee assistance program, but really important that you have them turn the camera on so you can see them, and also so that you can notice their tone of voice. And part of that conversation might be, are you struggling with human connection over video? A lot of introverts and people are uncomfortable over video. So how can you use that as a career development goal to give that person more confidence on a screen and on video? Anonymous, what would your suggestion to maintain the momentum of the wellbeing program or initiatives post-lockdown COVID-19? I'd recommend using that wellness survey twice a year. Every 6 months is a good cadence for you to be checking in on how it's going. You'll find you get different suggestions and asks each time, and then you just might switch things up. Instead of having yoga online, you might end up having a meditation classes, whatever your employees are asking for, because that's how you want to tailor your program. How can we make sure employees don't get survey fatigued? Yeah, it's a great question, because survey fatigue does two things. If you survey too much, you don't have time to action what has come forward in that survey. So try to only be surveying, probably most often would be every quarter. Again, make sure you read the results of that survey out as quickly as you can, and any action items that you have combined with reasons that you might not be able to provide things that have been asked for in the survey. Transparency is really key to having your employees trust, and also to explaining why you might not be able to put a wellness coach, for example, a live wellness coach available 24/7 to every single employee. And Michael, can you deal with the cultural quotient of your workforce? I'm not sure I'm interpreting that one correctly. If you could maybe type one with a little bit more detail. The next one. thanks for that. This is Elizabeth. I think ultimately this person is actually deep down shy, although in person that quite often can happen. I think, during lockdown and remote work, switching to videos has shown a lot of that. And so I would even pose the question, Alex, is it that you're uncomfortable on video, and how can we put that into a development plan to get you comfortable on video? Because this is the way of the future, remote work. If we don't offer this, at least hybrid work going forward, we will lose talent. So we need to make sure that a core skill for people is to be able to be comfortable on video, to be able to communicate articulately and get their message across, and also allowing your introverts to answer questions in team meetings. If you have a team meeting on video and you have someone who's introverted and you know that they're not likely to speak up, don't call on them and embarrass them. Just say to them, ping them afterwards and just say, look, if you want to catch up with me one-on-one to give feedback on that particular issue or topic, please feel free to do so. Tanya, as a leader, how do you balance the tone and issues between team members? It seems that communication breakdowns are becoming more regular with the use of text, emails, Teams, and less human interactions. Great question, Tanya. So we developed here at Employment Hero a guide to remote work, where we have specific tools that we use for specific things to make sure everyone's super clear on what to do and what to do in situations. So for example, Slack is to be used for all internal communications, and Slack keeps a record of everything. So you don't want to be using text messages, they get lost and they're not public. So using something like Slack for everything internal, having rules where you're explaining if Slack turns into more than 3 interactions between, so 3 lots of typing, pick up a video and talk to the person, throw time in their calendar, or there's actually a new huddle button on Slack, and I found it to be incredibly useful to just pick up the phone and talk to someone. You're not on video, but it helps to solve the problem really, really well. And also making sure you have those virtual social get-togethers, especially if you have new employees. It's so important to make them feel included. I had a new employee join our team yesterday, and we are having time together socially as a team this afternoon so that we get to know her and so that she starts to feel really entrenched in the team, despite all of us being in lockdown. Most of the employees pretend to be busy whenever we plan to hold any form of employee engagement or have a team building exercise. How do you encourage teams to engage in various activities apart from work? So again, I'd even think about surveying or polling your people to ask them, what do they want to do socially? Because quite often people who are shy won't want to join a social chit chat because they think they're going to be under pressure to create conversation or guide conversation. So if you ask them what they would find fun, like we've done drag queen bingo, we've done the amazing race, we had Magic Mike the other week, not the stripper, a magician, and that was really fun. And we try to make it early, and we did have feedback, certainly when lockdown started and homeschooling was happening. People who had kids did want to be able to log off at 5:30. So every now and then we cancel our Friday all hands, and in place of that we do some kind of company social get together. And we also try to make it so that kids can join. So the magician one was really fantastic. We saw families in living rooms join. So being able to get your family involved during lockdown on your company event is really great. What if I'm the one who doesn't want to be on video? Well, you've got to pluck up the courage to talk to your manager about how to make you comfortable with video. Now, there's 2 different things. It's okay to be video fatigued. If you've literally been on 5 meetings that day and you just don't need to be on video and you're wanting to multitask because that meeting is not critical to your job or the outcomes of your role, that's okay to turn the video off. But if you're not wanting to be on video because you're uncomfortable, in this new remote hybrid world of work where COVID-19 has done all the change management for us, you're actually going to be self-limiting your own career progression, because you won't be making human connections. You won't be making those social connections. And it's really, really important. Just dive in. Once you start, you'll start to feel more comfortable being on video. I mean, one of the worst things is seeing yourself all the time, right? I think a lot of people don't know that on Zoom and on Google Meets and on Slack, you can actually turn your own video off so that you're not looking at yourself, which is a really important thing, because that can be where you do feel uncomfortable. Another question. Screen fatigue is a major issue with our workforce. We have provided tips to our workforce, e.g. exercises, stepping away and getting a drink. Unfortunately, it seems the problem is still pervasive. Do you have any suggestions on more proactive steps we can take to address the issue? So again, not dissimilar to our guide on how to work effectively remotely, you could create some guidelines around when a camera needs to be turned on versus when a camera can be turned off. So yes, you can absolutely turn your camera off if you are feeling video fatigued. Bring it up with your manager and let them know that you will have your video off, but make sure for at least 3 meetings a day you have your video on. Craig, many of us are isolated in our workplaces. Any ideas on how to foster connection between remote workers? Yeah, tons of ideas. And a lot of that will actually be in the marketing pack on workplace wellness that will go out. And it can be a manager setting up some kind of virtual session to get to know people. And then if people don't know each other, you can have get to know you questions that are really fun so that you're getting to know new team members. Or you could play online Pictionary, which is great, or get someone to facilitate an event like Drag Queen Bingo. We did that across the globe with our employees and got fantastic feedback. And it does help to foster relationships. The virtual lunch is great. I've done that with my team. Simple rule is you can't talk about work, and you really do get to know people a lot better. And also every second day or every day, doing daily huddles with your team, while it's not asynchronous communication, it can really help you feel connected to your team, connected to what the priorities are, or going back to that suggestion I made earlier and kicking off a meeting with celebrations. What's the best thing that happened last week or yesterday? It could be work or personal. My organisation has just started using Sonder. Great. They provide 24/7 wellbeing, including EAP for all of our team. Great. There's another suggestion. Thank you so much, Darlene. And Susan, we have a large casual shift work base working in clients' homes, remote, but of a different flavour. How do we encourage them to participate in activities that are planned? Just try to get them to join by letting them know that they'll get to know other people. Also try and do it at a time that is within work hours. So if they're shift workers and you're offering to do it during their shift, they're getting paid for it. You'll be amazed at how truly appreciative they are, and they feel recognised if you do that, and they're much more likely to jump on. Once you get a couple of people doing it, they will go back into that workplace where they're an essential worker, and they'll talk about how fun it was and how they met some new people and how they did feel that connection, albeit virtual. The next one, what if it is the manager who is making the excuses that their team aren't available at the time to meet on a regular basis? Then make it a KPI for the manager that once a quarter, once a month, they have to do some kind of informal social team building activity, even if it's for half an hour at 4:30 on a Wednesday. They absolutely have to do it. Just make it a deliverable. It's part of their role as a manager. Can you please explain what you did for your Amazing Race initiative? Yes, absolutely. It was really fun. So we actually had the Amazing Race, who do amazing races physically around Sydney prior to COVID. They came on and they did a Zoom. We had over 200 people. They then Zoomed us into groups that we had predetermined. So we didn't have anyone on the same team being Zoomed into a room of their own. So 5 people were on a team. We'd get asked a trivia question or a fun question about Hollywood or something about sport. We would Zoom into our small group, come up with the answers. The questions were asked in groups of 5, so 5 questions. Jump into your Zoom room, answer those 5 questions, come back, and then you'd submit your answers online, and the people running the amazing race would compile those answers, and we came up with winners, and we had gift cards as prizes. Again, another reason for people to join. Who doesn't want a $100 gift voucher? You can certainly invest in that. They also did some really fun things. So you had to pick one person on your team of 5 who was going to be a runner. And each, as a bit of a break, they'd pick that one person throughout the session, and they did something along the lines of, okay, Alex, it's your turn. You've got 5 minutes to go and find a Monopoly board and crack an egg into a glass. And so it was just complete luck as to whether I had a Monopoly board in my house. Did I know where it was to get it in 5 minutes? Do I have an egg in the fridge? And do I have a glass? And that was for extra points. And it was really, really fun. And you got to know other people because we mixed up teams. So we didn't allow anyone on the marketing team to be on the Amazing Race team. Paul, having to leave you now for another webinar at 4:45. It's been a great session. Oh, thanks, Paul. The next one, my company is in the construction industry with a small administration staff with a background in trade. Their typical attitude is it's fine or they'll be grand when it comes to trying to start programs. They even see stuff like this as unimportant compared to other topics or priorities. What could you suggest trying to help get the attitudes shift a little? You could actually ask some of your people who attend online to give some testimonials, make them anonymous and show them. Say, here are the testimonials of people who have attended these virtual events, and here's what they've gained and benefited from it. And that will hopefully spur them on to join. Thanks, Elizabeth, for that. And thanks, Diana. It looks like there aren't any more questions, so I will be able to give you a whole 15 minutes back. If I can ask you in the next 15 minutes to use the time to reach out to someone either in your organisation or a loved friend or family member and check in on how they're doing during COVID for Are You OK Day. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I look forward to our next webinar, which I'm sure will be in not too long. Have a great afternoon. Bye.